Good day, everybody. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from London, Canada, not London, England, on March 8th, 2026. Welcome to our newest live stream. I noticed in the chat just before I came in that there is some confusion about our start time. I believe we changed time in Canada last night, and so I believe it's now 4:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and I put in the notice about this live stream Eastern Standard Time. So I don't know if that started any confusion. I could be the one who's confused. I've gotten almost no sleep this week, so which is, by the way, why I have these massive, embarrassing bags under my eyes. Anyways, Rami is also potentially suffering from time zone confusion. He seems to be walking around somewhere in Colombia. I'm going to bring him in if he doesn't mind. Hey, Rami, how you doing, man?
Sorry, I think we changed time in Canada, but not in Colombia. So we used to be on parity, 4:30, but now it's 3:30 p.m. here in Colombia. I'm getting into the elevator. It's also election day here.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
big. So as Fuck Banker says in the chat, there's no time like the present. Thank you very much for that wonderful comment. We have people joining us from all over. We have Comrade Nomad's Nest 1 UK from the United Kingdom. Well, I'm just catching up on the chat here. Somebody else, Fuck Bankers, maybe in London, actually, the other London, the big one. And more and more people are coming in now. We have Alexander K64 from Greece. Thank you for joining us. And yes, and absolutely, Zedrinka 1972. Happy International Women's Day. There's nothing more precious in this world than our female partners. At least that's my old school view of things. In any case, I'm going to just make sure that we're live on X. If you bear with me for 1 second while Rami gets his bearings. Rami, where are you? Are you near a hotel? Oh, seems like he can't hear me. In any case, it looks like we're good to go on X, and presumably good to go on YouTube as well. 1 second. Yes, we are. So today we are going to talk about a rather alarming increase in the intensity and breadth of this criminal war of aggression on Iran. The Epstein regime's war has now become a regional conflagration, and by all indications, it is escalating. The Epstein regime just attacked Iran's oil infrastructure and desalination facilities, and Rami will have more to say about those attacks in the second half of this live stream. And Iran apparently retaliated by striking Israel's oil refinery in Haifa and allegedly also a water desalination facility in Bahrain, which is right across the Persian Gulf. That's the tiny island controlled by cousins of the Saudi autocrat. I guess they're cousins or something like that, who are Sunni, and they ruled Bahrain with an iron fist, even though the vast majority of the population is Shia. And meanwhile, the global economy is frankly teetering on the brink of disaster. One might well ask whether we are now into a full-blown World War III. If not, we are heading there inexorably, it seems. And these are the questions we'll delve into today. Before we begin, if you find this live stream to be informative, please like and share it. And if you're not already a subscriber to Reason to Resist, please become one and help us expand the reach of our unapologetic resistance journalism. In the last 28 days, according to YouTube metrics, we have added well over 12,000 subscribers. So our message is resonating. Our journalism appears to be of use to our comrades around the world, and that's very gratifying to us. And we would very much like to keep up the rapid growth so that we can defend the truth and the oppressed to the greatest of our ability. One thing I want to add about this, the breadth of this war, is just a thought that occurred to me the other day. I don't remember a time in my lifetime, and I was born quite a while ago, and when there were military bases in 12 separate countries, military bases belonging to the United States or to any other Western imperial hegemon, whether it be Britain, France, you name it, military bases in 12 separate countries being attacked simultaneously by anybody, let alone a single state. I try to do the list in my head, off the top of my head: Oman, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Israel, Jordan. There was a claim, I don't know if it's accurate, that there was an attack on Cyprus. It's technically a British military base, but the Americans use it extensively. There was an allegation that some Iranian missiles or drones passed through Turkish airspace and were shot down. If that's true, it doesn't appear that there was a target was that the intended target was in Turkey. It might well have been the Akrotiri military base in Cyprus. But in any case, yes.
You forgot to mention Syria, which hosts American radar systems that are used to detect incoming Iranian missiles. And we're still not sure if Syria is actively participating in shooting down these Iranian missiles.
I had not seen those reports. That's interesting and not at all surprising. It would be amazing if Syria managed to stay out of this war. And I may have missed another one. And now we have potentially brewing military conflict between the Islamic Republic of Iran and Azerbaijan. And frankly, although I don't want to see this war spread, Azerbaijan's regime needs to have its ass kicked, because by all indications, it is fully committed to the Zionist enterprise of expansionism and aggression, and is betraying its fellow Muslims and other indigenous peoples of the region. And of course, there is military conflict next door between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So I think you could make a very strong case that we are now fully into a world war. When you include the fact that Russia for over 4 years has been waging an absolutely catastrophic war in Eastern Europe against not just Ukraine, but the entirety of NATO. And then you have military conflict between, I believe, Cambodia and Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. So the situation is extraordinarily dangerous. And today we're going to focus in on the region of West Asia in particular, but because that's where I think the greatest danger lies. So, Rami, before I get into it, what's happened in the last 48 hours in the region, anything you want to add?
I mean, I have a little rant coming up, but I think when you're mentioning these, I think it was a dozen countries or so that are participating in this war against Iran, I think this also emphasizes how difficult it is for Iran to accurately target Israel, and it's still able to get in important strikes. And I'll talk about proofs of that, which is mainly because satellite companies are now censoring this region. But I don't know, Dimitri, if we'll have time to talk about this today, but Israel has also been having a hard time penetrating the south of Lebanon. And there's been very impressive reports of strong Hezbollah resistance in pushing back Israel in the south.
Yeah, so let's get into those attacks. I'm going to talk a little bit about Hezbollah. Some video and photographs that have emerged of strikes or apparent strikes on the genocidal Israeli entity within the past 24 to 48 hours. I'm going to issue my normal disclaimer. It is extremely difficult in current circumstances to verify the videos and the photographs that are appearing on Telegram channels, resistance channels, on more conventional social media like X. So we do the best that we can, but please, be aware that we can make a mistake given the challenging circumstances. And already on my own X account, I've had to delete 2 or 3 posts because I realized after the fact that the video was either from the 12-day war, or in one case, it was apparently generated by artificial intelligence, even though Grok said that it was real. So that's how difficult the current circumstances is. But we do the best that we can, and we rely on sources that we have found to be reasonably reliable in the past. So here is a video of a strike on Israel today, or the aftermath, I should say, of a strike, a brief video. And just show it again. Now, here is another one that emerged within the past 24 hours. So you don't see an impact, but you hear what appears to be an impact from a missile strike again. Okay, now let's go to one more here. This, I believe, was a strike in Tel Aviv.
הם טוענים שכן אפשר לראות פה את הרסיס, אני לא רואה מאומה.
Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to translate what the speaker was saying there, but anybody who speaks Hebrew in the chat, please feel free to translate for us if you don't mind. And here is some video, apparently, of interceptor missiles going up from, I believe, the Haifa area. These interceptors were trying to respond to an attack from Hezbollah. And what is really remarkable about this video I'm about to show you is the number of interceptors that they fire off within a matter of seconds. Let's watch that again. I mean, you can count, I think there's close to 10 in just the latter half of that video. So you can imagine you're going to, Israel's going to burn through its interceptor stocks pretty damn fast if it is having to expend that many interceptor missiles just to respond to the attacks of Hezbollah, which obviously has a much more limited arsenal available to it than Iran, or at least that's what one would assume. There's also photographic image of an attack, or the immediate aftermath of a missile strike on I believe it's a suburb of Tel Aviv called Petah Tikva. And this was published today on a Telegram channel, Photos Resistance. And the channel seemed quite confident that this was real, and it happened within the past 24 hours. So Iran has also continued to demolish U.S. military assets in the fake Arab countries controlled by the Epstein regime. Here is a video shot apparently by a U.S. soldier at one of those bases. It reportedly shows an Iranian drone striking a defense radar at a U.S. military at the U.S. military base known as Ali Al Salam Air Base in Kuwait.
They hit the base of it. They knocked the lights out on that motherfucker.
They took the power out.
Still standing?
Yeah.
That thing's fucking.
Did you get that shit?
I got.
So yeah, let's listen to that U.S. soldier. Apparently, a U.S. soldier saying it hit the lights out of that motherfucker. Here we go.
No, they missed it again. They hit the base of it. They knocked the lights out on that motherfucker.
They took the power out.
Still standing?
Yeah.
That thing's fucking.
Did you get that shit?
I got.
Now, I have to say that I've seen a number of videos like this taken by U.S. soldiers at the bases in the region. It strikes me, as a person who is admittedly not an expert in military matters, that this demonstrates a remarkable lack of discipline on the part of these soldiers, who I think are unaccustomed to a war of this nature. While I, as a journalist, appreciate the publication of these videos, probably not helpful to the cause of the U.S. military that they are being published by these soldiers. And I don't think they're doing it necessarily for the public good. I think it's just, in many cases, as I mentioned, a lack of discipline. Now, there's also this photograph, which was shared with by the Cradle on X, which reportedly shows the demolition of a Halliburton facility in Basra, Iraq. That is quite a bit of damage there. It looks to me like an entire building has been, a large warehouse facility apparently has been absolutely leveled to the ground, consumed by a large fire, it appears. You probably have heard the name of Halliburton before. This is a huge military contractor in the United States. The CEO, I think it was the CEO or the chairman of Halliburton for a number of years, was a war criminal by the name of Dick Cheney, who became the vice president of the United States under George W. Bush, and was directly and aggressively and enthusiastically involved in the criminal war of aggression on Iraq, the torture regime established under Bush, lying to the American people about all manner of neoconservative crimes committed by the Bush administration. So there's a certain poetic justice to this merchant of death getting a taste of Iranian medicine during this war of aggression on Iran. Meanwhile, Hezbollah is hitting Israel's genocide forces quite hard. We're not gonna have time to be exhaustive about this, but I'll show you an example. Here is a report today in the Times of Israel, confirming that 2 Israeli terrorists were eliminated by the Lebanese resistance in the south of Lebanon. Apparently, they were operating some bulldozer or something. It was dispatched to help a stuck tank hit by a projectile, causing a deadly blaze. And so apparently a tank was also struck in this incident, not just the bulldozer. And then there was an event in eastern Lebanon which captured a lot of attention, particularly on resistance channels. What apparently happened, I think this was the night before, not last night, but the night before, is that the genocidal Israeli military sent commandos on 2 or more, possibly 3 helicopters. They were flying through Syrian airspace, as I understand it, from the direction of Damascus, and they landed either just on the Syrian side of the Lebanese border or on the Lebanese side, but in an eastern border region between Lebanon and Syria. And the reports are that they were trying to recover the remains of an Israeli Air Force pilot by the name of Ron Arad, who passed away in circumstances I'm not aware of many years ago. So they were willing to risk quite a few lives to get the remains of this former pilot who died a long time ago. But they were ambushed and were forced to retreat from the area by the Lebanese resistance. And it's not clear whether they suffered casualties, if so, how many. There were reports at the time that they were completely surrounded, and they sent a team in. This is coming from the resistance side, that they sent a team of commandos in to rescue the ones who were surrounded, and those 2 were ambushed. There are numerous videos which are reportedly from the scene, but it's very dark outside, and you can hear a lot of gunfire, tremendous amount of gunfire. And I've also seen some video footage of the helicopters taking off. So very unclear what happened there, but the Israeli media have admitted that this mission occurred and that it failed. They did not achieve their stated objective of recovering the remains of this Israeli war criminal. Now, quite apart from that, as I indicated, there are huge volleys of Hezbollah missiles coming into northern occupied Palestine. I showed you the video of this air defense system liberally firing up these very, very expensive and increasingly scarce interceptor missiles. So whatever the damage is that Hezbollah has been able to inflict in the first week of this war, two things are clear. It is not even remotely spent as a fighting force. We were told, during the last, year or more of a totally one-sided ceasefire in which the Lebanese resistance restrained itself and Israel violated the ceasefire on an almost daily basis on thousands of occasions, oftentimes multiple times a day, and killed in the range of 500 Lebanese during this so-called ceasefire. Many claimed that Hezbollah was done as a fighting force. I myself began to wonder whether they had the capacity to put up serious resistance after all the blows they suffered in defense of the Palestinian people in 2024. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind and the minds of others who have been following closely what Hezbollah has been doing over the last week, that this is a very, very formidable fighting force, and that the Israelis are in no position to occupy the south of Lebanon. And as far as I can tell, they're not inclined to even try at this point. So this is a front that is going to pose serious problems for the genocidal regime, I think, in the days and weeks ahead. Not just because Hezbollah has demonstrated its ongoing capacity to both launch missiles into northern occupied Palestine and wage warfare on the ground effectively, but also this is the first time in this conflict, this 2+ years of genocide, when both Hezbollah and the Iranian military were engaged in full-blown war against the genocidal Israeli military at the same time, and for an extended period of time. So one would think that given the exhaustion that the Israeli military is currently suffering from, this is the worst possible time for both the Lebanese resistance and the Iranian military forces to put all of their firepower, aim all of their firepower or much of it on the genocidal entity at the same time. Rami, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think this starts to make sense into why Israel was so adamant in continuing to strike Hezbollah during the so-called ceasefire, specifically to transfer the strain away from Israel onto Hezbollah, so that when Israel is at war with Iran, it could at least manage the way to maintain that, and hope that the continuous attacks on Hezbollah would have stopped them from engaging into this war.
Right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the information warfare that's going on. We're still getting, frankly, incredible reports from the Trump regime that there have been only, 6 U.S. soldiers killed. I don't know what the current number is, but it's less than 10. The last time I checked, much less than 10. And some odd reports have begun to appear about U.S. soldiers dying in West Asia. So there's this one. Sorry, let me just find it. Oh, I'm going to have to pull it up from my stock of images here. 1 second, folks. Sorry about this. So you can see here that somebody apparently who doubles as a police officer in New York City and as a soldier, I guess he's in the reserve, the U.S. Army Reserve, is said to have passed away on March 6, 2026. And the report was that he died as a result of, I believe the phrase they used was a medical episode. And they didn't provide any more information than that. Now, in the context of these intense hostilities that are happening and these incessant and quite effective attacks on U.S. military bases, we would be justified, I think, in doubting whether the medical episode wasn't caused by wounds sustained in an Iranian missile or drone attack. And then there was a similar sort of mysterious announcement about this individual. I believe this was a post on Instagram, and friends of U.S. Marine Corps Lance Corporal Kevin Melendez, a 2024 graduate of Grapevine High School, has died while serving our country. The military says he passed away earlier this week in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, in a non-hostile incident. On March 4th, Marines carried his transfer case during a dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. So given what we're seeing in terms of pathological lying from the Trump regime, I would not attach any importance whatsoever to the U.S. military's claim that he died in a non-hostile incident. Maybe that's true. You know, even serving in military in peacetime can be dangerous and lethal. It's an inherently dangerous activity, serving the military, even in peacetime. So I don't claim to know definitively how this young soldier died. But as I say, I wouldn't attach any real weight to claims that are being made by the U.S. military about casualties suffered in this region, especially when the total casualty count it's giving us is just, it strains credulity, to put it mildly. And then there is this interesting report about a hospital in the region. And you'll see that the largest U.S. military hospital, this is in abroad, and it's based in West Asia, has halted labor and delivery services amid the Iran war. And reportedly, the primary purpose, this hospital does deal with deliveries and labor of pregnant women, but apparently the primary purpose of this particular medical facility is to deal with combat casualties. So now, again, as keeping with the theme of information warfare, you know, it certainly is my impression, Rami. I don't know about yours, but I have seen a lot less video evidence of strikes on the genocidal Israeli entity during the past week than I saw during the 12-day war. Much less. Is that also your experience?
Well, there's already some reports coming out. There's a video on circulating on the internet of a Tajik guy who was arrested or detained for a short period of time for documenting Iranian strikes on Israel. There's a video I wanted to show maybe now or later on of CNN admitting that there's a censorship board in Israel stopping the release of video footage. And of course, there's two satellite companies, Planet as well as Maxar, that has stopped taking imagery of the Middle East, specifically because, well, this is also the first time that we hear these types of reports, right, of satellite companies stopping to take imagery. And that should probably be a sign that there are strikes rather than a sign that there isn't. So, and they claim that they're stopping the imagery of the Middle East because they don't want this information to be transmitted to Iran. But it would be absurd to think that Iran is relying on Planet or Maxar Technologies, American and Israeli satellite companies, to define their own strike targets. And instead, we know that Iran is leveraging their own satellites as well as Chinese and Russian satellites. So this is mainly, this stoppage of information is for us in the West rather than truly for the enemy, or in their words, the enemy.
And, you know, I think that, well, I doubt anybody in the audience is going to disagree. I know you won't, Rami, that claims by the genocidal Israeli military and the U.S. military about the extent of damage inside Israel are completely lacking in credibility. I wouldn't attach any weight to them at all unless they're backed up by some kind of credible independent evidence. And frankly, they fly any suggestion that Israel is suffering less damage now than in the 12-day war, I think just flies in the face of logic and experience. And the reason I say that is because we know it's been admitted and demonstrated through satellite imagery, but also admitted that this time the Iranians have succeeded in taking out quite a few sophisticated and very expensive early warning radar systems throughout West Asia, including one that apparently had a value of in excess of $1 billion. it was a rare military asset that the United States had in the region, and it was taken out by one or more drone strikes. And that didn't happen during the 12-day war. There was one attack on a U.S. military base during the 12-day war, and as far as we know, and it happened at the very end, when all the hostilities came to a cessation or a suspension, when there was a missile strike by Iran on the U.S. military base in Qatar. And apparently there they did take out a radar facility, but that was at the very end. Here, this happened at the very beginning. And numerous military experts have commented that the effect of this, and they've observed this on the ground, has been that the sirens in Israel are going off, like a minute perhaps, or even 2 minutes before the missile strikes, whereas before it was 15 to 30 minutes. And sometimes the strikes happen without any warning at all, because the early warning systems have been so degraded. So the logical assumption should be that Israel is sustaining more damage than in the 12-day war, because in the 12-day war, the U.S. early warning radar systems were not taken out at the beginning of the conflict. And the other reason why you would expect the damage sustained in Israel to be higher this time around than last time is that there's a certain learning curve in how to evade the air defenses of your opponent. So the Iranians had the experience of trying to penetrate Israel's air defenses for 12 days in June of last year. So one would assume that they would be more effective in penetrating them this time. And that's probably also true on the side, the Israeli side. They had the experience of trying to penetrate Iranian air defenses in June of last year. So one would expect them to be more effective in doing that this time around. So however you slice and dice it, it seems to me that it is likely, very likely, that the damage Israel's sustaining now is at least as severe as the damage it sustained in June of last year, and probably more severe. So I wouldn't draw any conclusions. If it's also your impression that there's less video evidence of strikes, successful strikes in Israel, I wouldn't draw any conclusions about that at all. And one other point I want to add in that regard, many of you may have seen, but a reporter from India who just returned home from occupied Palestine after having reported there was complaining bitterly about the level of censorship, and talked about a couple of incidents that he knew of personally, including one incident in which an Iranian missile penetrated through to a bunker and killed people inside the bunker. And in another incident, he said he showed up at the site of a missile strike, and he was told when he got there that by representatives of the Israeli military that there had been only one casualty. But then when he spoke to people on the ground, they told him that they knew of 2 houses that had been completely flattened, and that all the people inside those 2 houses were dead. So plenty of other reasons to think that, the Israelis are massively understating the extent of damage in the country, and are doing everything possible to perpetuate the myth of, the invincibility of Israel's air defenses. Now, moving on, I'd like to talk a little bit about Iran's overall strategy before I turn this over to Rami. Iran, it seems to me, that is treating Israel, the U.S. bases in the Gulf dictatorships, and the Gulf dictatorships that are aligned with Israel and the United States and are in some way, shape, or form helping the U.S. and Israel to carry out these attacks. It's treating them basically as one big unit, one big enemy. Now, it's true that as a matter of international law, Israel says, or that as a matter of international law, these various entities, whether you're talking about Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Israel, are separate and distinct and sovereign nations. But the reality, I think, is quite clearly otherwise. Washington basically uses these parts of West Asia as it sees fit for whatever criminal activities it happens to be engaged in at any particular time. And the people who are in charge of these regimes are facilitating those crimes, whether passively or actively. And as I've said many times, Israel itself, I think, is most properly thought of as a gigantic U.S. military base masquerading as a country. So the practical reality is that it is one big enemy. It isn't, a series of truly sovereign states, each of which is, responsible only for its own behavior. Now, one might say, well, the law is the law, and Iran should respect the law. But at the same time, the United States has made absolutely clear that it doesn't attach any importance to international law whatsoever. At least it pretended to in prior years. And to some extent, I think it did try to comply to a limited degree in certain circumstances. But as you all may recall, Trump recently gave an interview in which he said the only constraint on my action is my own morality, of which he has absolutely none. So he clearly has no regard for international law. And then we have the spectacle this week of this satanic Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, referring to prior U.S. wars of aggression on this region as having been politically correct. So from his perspective, the destruction of Iraq, the invasion of Iraq was politically correct. The genocidal war on Yemen was politically correct. The genocide of Israel, carried out under the Biden administration in part, was politically correct. The 20-year brutal occupation of Afghanistan and all the atrocities committed there was politically correct. So this character, too, is clearly signaling his complete and utter contempt for international law and human rights. And so if you're sitting there from the Iranian perspective fighting an existential war against the Epstein regime, why would you say, well, I'm going to treat each of these various so-called countries as distinct entities when in actual fact it's just one big enemy? So at the end of the day, I think the Iranians are not going to be particularly concerned about the fact that these states or so-called states have independent legal status under international law. And one other footnote in that regard, here is a report. The Saudis have been denying that they have been facilitating these attacks on Iran. Well, apparently, according to the Islander, he's given us an image of a website that tracks the movement of aircraft in the region. And he reports on X that a U.S. stealth pilot departed Ovda Air Base in southern Israel, forgot to switch off his transponder, and handed the entire world via Flight Radar 24, that's a site that I've used myself on numerous occasions, a live broadcast of the route Washington had just spent weeks diplomatically insisting it wasn't using. Saudi Arabia had told Iran and told Washington that its airspace would not be made available for strikes. Iran's ambassador to Riyadh had personally thanked the kingdom for that pledge. The ink was barely dry. The $150 million stealth aircraft, whose entire operational premise is invisibility, announced itself over Saudi Arabia like a commercial flight to Dubai. Call sign F3F and so forth, altitude, heading, ground speed, all of it public, live, archive, distributed across Telegram channels from Tehran to Moscow before the sortie had even reached the target. So hard to believe that the Saudis are not in some way, shape, or form facilitating these attacks. Now, until now, I've talked to you, and this is the last thing I'm going to discuss before turning it over to Rami, about the military aspects or the military, significant military developments in the last 48 hours. But there is, of course, also the economic war. And we have good reason to believe that the economic sphere of this war will be even more important than the military sphere. So here is an article published this week by the Financial Times, which is a British or public media organization that is intensely hostile to Iran. And the headline, as you see, is Qatar warns war will force Gulf to stop energy exports within days. And according to this article, Qatar's energy minister, Saad Al-Kaibi, who went on record, said to the Financial Times that a war on Iran could, quote, bring down the economies of the world, close quote. And he predicted, according to the FT, that all Gulf energy exporters would shut down production within days and drive oil to $150 a barrel. He also told that, so that would constitute, by the way, approximately a doubling of the price of oil before this criminal war of aggression began, maybe even more than doubling. He also told the FT that even if the war ended immediately, it would take Qatar the world's second largest producer of liquefied natural gas, weeks to months to return to a normal cycle of deliveries. He continued, if this war continues for a few weeks, GDP growth around the world will be impacted. Everybody's energy price is going to go higher. There will be shortages of some products, and there will be a chain reaction of factories that cannot supply, close quote. Now, you may have heard Trump, blather about how he's dealing with the problem, the severe problem of maritime traffic being unwilling or unable to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. So the orange psychopath has come up with two proposals to deal with this problem. The first is, because there is this threat of these oil tankers being attacked or damaged, perhaps unintentionally, insurers are either unwilling to insure these vessels or are charging exorbitant premiums. So Donald Trump's proposal to deal with that is to direct an agency of the U.S. government to provide insurance to oil shipping companies in the region at a reasonable rate. Now, if it were to do that, if the U.S. government, through one of its agencies, were to provide insurance to these shipping companies at a reasonable rate, which I guess would mean, peacetime rates offered by these insurers, even though the risk associated with transportation of oil through the Strait of Hormuz has gone up stratospherically, the likely outcome of that is that the United States government is going to be on the hook for a lot of money because it's going to be charging a premium on the insurance, which does not reflect the actual risk. In fact, which is grossly disproportionate to the actual risk. It won't be sufficient to make the provision of insurance profitable or even break even. So the U.S. government is going to end up having to pay a lot of money over time and will not recover that money through the premiums. And how long is the American public going to put up with that? I mean, already the cost of this war is enormous. So that's a problem. But quite apart from that, whether or not these vessels are insured, you have to find people to actually man the vessels, to actually act as crew members and pilots and navigators of these vessels. And the insurance, you can't, if they're killed or disabled by some attack on the tanker, the insurance isn't going to be much, of a reward to their family. These people are not, many of these sailors are probably going to be unwilling to work in these conditions at all, whatever the situation may be vis-a-vis insurance. And finally, I think most importantly, the problem with Trump's proposal, he's coupled this proposal about providing insurance at reasonable rates with an assurance that the U.S. Navy is going to escort these vessels through the Strait of Hormuz. And the Iranian military, I think quite understandably, has reacted to this by saying, we strongly encourage the United States Navy to do that. Now, why would they react in that way? Because the Strait of Hormuz at its narrowest point is about 35 kilometers. And all that the Iranian military has to do to inflict devastating damage on any U.S. naval vessels that pass through the Strait of Hormuz is to attack them with drones. I saw a report which claimed that the report was about the U.S. military bombing the Iranian naval base on the Strait of Hormuz. And the report claimed that if the naval base was fully destroyed, Iran would no longer have the capacity to stop maritime traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. This is complete bollocks. It's complete bollocks because the Iranians could sit up in the mountains overlooking the Strait of Hormuz and rain down drone after drone after drone on U.S. naval vessels. These are well within range they would be well within range of the Iranian drone forces. And so it would be literally a suicide mission for the United States Navy to send any significant military and naval assets through the Strait of Hormuz to protect oil tankers. And I saw some other U.S. officials say recently, after Trump made this boastful claim that they were going to accompany these vessels, that the U.S. Navy would do that when conditions were appropriate. So it doesn't sound like that's something they're going to, try to do anytime soon. And if they did, I think it would end in a complete and utter disaster for the U.S. Navy. So at the end of the day, it seems to me that You can say, and I think the most reasonable interpretation, that on the military side, because of the destructive capacity at their disposal, and because in particular the fact they have nuclear weapons, the Israelis and the Americans, particularly the Americans, of course, have escalation dominance. They can inflict, as we go up the escalation ladder, they can inflict much more damage on Iran than Iran can inflict upon them. But when it comes to the economic war, I think it is Iran that has escalation dominance because of the way its geostrategic location, because of its proximity to this extraordinarily important part of the world, with oil-producing part of the world. And it's not just oil that comes out of this region, which the global economy requires. So at the end of the day, whatever physical damage the Americans and the Israelis can impose upon Iran, as long as it has the capacity to stop the flow of maritime transportation through the Strait of Hormuz, the global economy is going to suffer devastating impacts. And the question then becomes, how long will the people of the United States and other Western states put up with this? My guess is not very long at all. Because after all, this war, with complete reason, is already wildly unpopular, and it's only going to get worse from here. Rami, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, so we need to remove this image. So today marks a week and 1 day since the U.S. invasion of Iran, and every victory the Americans were able to claim has drastically backfired. On the 20th of February, the Epstein alliance elevated the Ayatollah Khamenei to the status of martyr as he died in the trenches in combat resisting Zionism. And the tiny bit of reputation left for American diplomacy has completely vanished as a facade and charade of diplomacy has collapsed. The invasion will have repercussions in how Russia and China will manage diplomacy with the United States in their respective grievances or challenges that they have with the United States. And as the process for selecting a new Ayatollah seems to be coming to a conclusion, there are strong indications that hardliners are being much more considered to take on the role of the spiritual leaders and the Ayatollah. And according to reports, there are indications showing that the son of the Ayatollah Khamenei, Mujtaba Khamenei, seems to be the most likely candidate. And here's this little article by The Atlantic that called him the most dangerous man in the world. Oh God, there's a alarm sign. There's a fire alarm in my apartment right now. So Mujtaba Khamenei was close to Ahmadinejad, one of the most hardline presidents of Iran, and who was rightfully hostile against the United States, the Zionist entity, and Saudi Arabia. Ahmadinejad has also called for stronger investment and sovereignty in Iran's nuclear program. Mujtaba is also very close to the Basij organization, which is a branch of the IRGC. It is known as the Organization for Mobilization of the Oppressed, which is one of the most loyal and dedicated branches of the IRGC. And that branch alone has 20 million soldiers, if not more, all on a volunteer basis. It truly seems like reformist movement in Iran is being sidelined. We're noticing, at least in Western media, Ali Larijani taking a lot more presence, a lot more space in comparison to reformists such as Pezeshkian. Ali Larijani, who sits on as the Secretary of Supreme National Security Council, has reportedly said that he is not ready to negotiate with the United States and that he's putting his efforts into maintaining this defense against this invasion. The Foreign Affairs Minister has also shown readiness to resist any U.S. ground invasion, and to a certain extent, it seems like they're welcoming it. As you can see from this video over here, let me see if we could share, which is quite reassuring to see the United States, to see Iran ready to defend themselves against any form of U.S. ground invasion.
Boots on the ground in Iran. Are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade, the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
So you're saying that Iran is ready and willing to take on the U.S. military if there were to be ground troops?
Well, we were ready for this war even more than the previous war. So you can see, the quality of our missiles, how much they are upgraded after the last war, because we learned lots of lessons. And we are prepared for any other eventuality, even, a ground invasion. So our soldiers are prepared for any scenario. When I said that we are waiting for them, it didn't mean that we are waiting for continuation of the war. No, but we have prepared ourselves to confront with any scenario, with any eventuality, any possibility, and we know that we can handle that.
Rami, I just have to, intervene for 1 second and say this journalist, so-called journalist, seems to have forgotten that the Taliban drove the United States Army from Afghanistan in 2021, just 5 years ago. So why would he find it so surprising that a much more formidable military is confident that it can respond to a ground invasion? I mean, I don't know. But
it's hard to remember a single ground invasion the U.S. have done that turned out to be a victory for them. Maybe you could argue the U.S. invasion of Panama, but other than that, Vietnam, Afghanistan, even in Iraq, right? America, the United States, weren't able to really claim a strategic or a well-defined victory in Iraq. If anything, if you look at the U.S. embassy in Iraq right now, those would be great signs that America, the United States, have lost total control of the situation in Iraq. And this is why I think, actually, this would be a grave mistake and really like the United States really getting high on their own ego right now of truly thinking that a U.S. invasion, a ground invasion, would bring them any closer to any form of victory in Iran. The United States have been targeting Iranian Navy fleet and ports. According to CENTCOM, 11 ships were downed within 48 hours. There's no official confirmation from Iran, but Iran did acknowledge that some ports and naval bases and carriers have been targeted, namely the Iris Dena, which was a boat, a frigate that was doing military exercises in India, invited by the Indian government, which was expected to have some level of Indian protection as it was doing joint military drills in the Indian Ocean under the protection of India. As soon as it was getting close to international waters, a U.S. submarine sunk the frigate, killing 87 sailors, and more than 60 are still missing. 32 were rescued by Sri Lankan Navy. And Indian Navy did not answer the distress calls by the Iranian frigate. The United States are now putting diplomatic pressure on Sri Lanka to put them in American custody. These 32 Iranian sailors that were rescued by Sri Lanka. And the attack on Iris Dena puts India and international law to shame, as the Iranian frigate was participating in joint military activities. And also, that just basically humiliates also India's ability to guarantee security in the Indian Ocean. Additionally, on the first day of the invasion of Iran, the United States and Israel have bombed a girls' school, killing 180 children, which, Dimitri, I think in your report where you went to this protest in Toronto or London, Ontario, it seems like this is just a very minor event for this Iranian diaspora that is calling for the downfall of the Iranian government.
Well, they claimed what they claimed, the people I interviewed at this protest in Toronto yesterday, that it was the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Revolutionary Guard Corps, that bombed the school, which is absurd, but on its face. But in addition, Western media have been reporting over the last several days that U.S. military officials have confirmed it's likely. U.S. military officials have confirmed it's likely that this strike was carried out by the United States.
I mean, this is repeating Israeli propaganda, right? Of putting the blame on the victim, then taking a tiny bit of responsibility, saying that it was a misfire, whatever. But But also, yes, I think there's also this Goldberg. I don't know, this girl that we used to call out here on our live stream, who used to be an Ontario member of parliament, was claiming that Iran used schools as launch pads for attacks, right? Which we all know is completely false. But this is just really the rinse and repeat of Israeli Zionist propaganda, and how, in some way, coordinates both from Washington and Tel Aviv. While, of course, the invasion and attack on Iran is a tough challenge for Iran to face, it is very hard for the United States to truly claim any victory. Trump has publicly stated some sort of war objective, which is regime change. That was what he announced publicly. However, there are no signs that they're gaining any ground on that mission. And I think, Dimitri, as you've mentioned in other videos, the goal of the United States is probably more the destruction of Iran. But I believe it is a big mistake for Trump to announce this as an objective, since it's extremely likely that it will be achieved. And it's difficult for Trump to move the goalpost and claim a victory once he does such an announcement. And Trump, in reality, is aiming for chaos and complete destruction of Iran. And there are growing similarities with Syria on how Trump is looking to achieve that, whether it is through weaponizing minority groups in Iran, and also the goal of balkanizing Iran to turn it into no longer as a threat. But on the other hand, there has been some strong victories that Iran can claim. First of all, the United States seems to have miscalculated the secondary consequences of an attack on Iran. Dimitri, you had mentioned the increase of oil prices. But beyond that, South Korean oil inventory is running dry, which has led to the largest one single day drop in South Korean stock market since the crash of 2008. The US is allowing India to bypass sanctions and to purchase Russian gas, which is quite funny considering India is an exporter of oil as well, and gas to many US allies, which means that the US is trying to save face by buying Russian oil and gas by proxy and selling it to Western markets under the name of Indian oil. And the UAE officials themselves have raised the alarm on food security, yet also claiming that there's no need to stockpile food. However, this quite shows contradictory statements, considering you shouldn't be worried of people stockpiling if the markets are filled with fruits and vegetables, and the market will regulate itself anyways. Trump has pressured military contractors such as Lockheed Martin to quadruple production of bombs. Germany is withdrawing troops. There's a little picture here I want to show. Where is it? Right here, where Germany is withdrawing troops and from military bases on foreign soils, such as Kuwait, Bahrain. However, the whole point of having troops in the Middle East or having bases in the Middle East is specifically for these types of moments. That just shows that the Middle East is no longer safe for Western soldiers to be stationed there. As you can see on this little statement here, it says, German troops stationed in Bahrain has already returned home, and preparations for withdrawals from Kuwait are underway. So, terrible day to be a Western soldier in the GCC. And then, of course, there's these reports of U.S. jets raining down in Kuwait and Iran. As we get more information from that, that's from the previous week. Iran has also been targeting fracture points in the GCC, namely by targeting desalination plants. A majority of Bahrain's water comes from desalination, and Iran has leveraged this use of warfare strategy after the US and Israel have themselves targeted Iranian desalination plants. And that will make access to water difficult for Bahrain and for other countries of the Middle East, where 40% of all desalinated water actually comes from the GCC region. And then, of course, Dimitri, we spoke about this briefly, that we don't have as much footage of impact on the ground, but there's strong military censorship in the US and Israel, so it isn't possible to immediately know the impact of damages caused by Iran's defensive response. But we know that Planet Labs and Maxar Technologies have stopped issuing imagery in this part of the world, and we know that Iran is not even using this type of technology to find targets. They have their own satellites, and they have their own partners issuing them imagery so that they can take these decisions on themselves. They don't rely on American companies. So clearly, the censorship of satellite imagery is for the best interest of the population of the West, so that we do not see the impacts of Iranian destruction in occupied Palestine. There was, there was some reports from CNN admitting live on the air the extent of Israeli censorship when it comes to military impact. And then you had a report today, this week, showing the Garamshar missile, which is the first time this was used in active conflict, which is a hypersonic ballistic missile that can hold the highest known warhead weight in Iran's publicly known missile stockpile. And it takes only 12 minutes for it to deploy and launch. It is hyper maneuverable. The Garamshar missile has targeted Ben Gurion. And this just shows that Iran is able to now target and have massive, the crater that this Garamshar missile would leave is definitely much more significant than anyone we've seen before. And that's just a sign that Iran is giving heavy blows to Israel. And then there's this new use of technology, or not technology, but documented use of force that Iran has been releasing, which is the use of underground silos to stockpile missiles, and they actually shoot these missiles from underground.
That's literally coming right out of the stand. How can you detect that launch?
Well, that's the thing, right? We know that during the 12-day war, Israel and the United States had a bit of success in targeting Iranian launch pads and missile launch infrastructure. When you watch this video, first of all, we don't even know how many more holes these missiles can be shot from. So it's impossible for the United States and Israel to fully be able to target Iranian launchers. And you could actually see from the color of the smoke that these missiles are coming from underground, since it's creating a cloud of earth truly from the moment of launch. Very impressive. I could watch this video every day forever, but we should probably move on. And also I think it's important to emphasize that Iran's strikes has been more and more precise, and they've been targeting the early detection sites, as you've mentioned. But just think about the logistical nightmare Iran has to go through just to hit a single target in occupied Palestine. First of all, Azerbaijan, although it's not directly implicated into this war, sorry, just read a funny comment, in this war, there's still radars that are positioned in Azerbaijan, and we know that there's Mossad agents operating in Azerbaijan to detect Iranian missiles. There's, of course, all the American military bases that are used to intercept Iranian missiles. There's Syria, Jordan, but also in the Mediterranean Sea, French, British, American carriers are also participating in helping Israel in downing and intercepting missiles. So when we look at the damage that Iran is causing in occupied Palestine, I'm more impressed by what these missiles had to go through just to be able to target occupied Palestine with these liberation missiles. And in a more diplomatic and political sphere, Iran has also shattered the illusion forever of Arab solidarity with Palestine. This illusion of this Arab-Israeli conflict, which has never existed, has completely shattered forever. I'm talking with my own networks of Palestinian friends. Some of them used to be kind of ambiguous when it came from Qatar. They're thinking Qatar was actually in support of Palestine. Now the allies of Palestine have been exposed. It is the Ansarullah movement that is governing Yemen. It is the Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq. It is the Iranian government and the brave resistance in the south of Lebanon. And we also need to emphasize that Iran has exposed that Arab governments in the United Arab Emirates, in Saudi Arabia, and Qatar and Bahrain are willing to intercept missiles at the expense of the safety of their own population, as debris from intercepted missiles are collapsing into the UAE. The Arab people in the Gulf are suffering on behalf of Israel, and that just shows which allegiance these Arab leaders have taken, and it's always at the expense of their own population. And Iran has also shattered the illusion that security in the region will come through force, will come through the presence of American soldiers, as the countries with American bases are the ones being targeted, and security in the Middle East will come through collaboration with Iran. So that's, I mean, there's more things I would love to talk about, but we don't really have time. Namely, Hezbollah's ability to resist in the south. They've been impressing the entire world right now. And also, I think it's important to kind of draw a comparison into how Syria, the Syrian model, I believe, is being kind of mimicked possibly into causing chaos in Iran forever. Although I'm sure the Iranian government is ready to push back on any form of division in Iran. That's my rant.
Thank you, Rami. You mentioned at the outset Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the assassinated Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, having been or being adjudged to be the candidate to succeed his father. There is a report, somebody in the comment section said that there were reports that he had been killed in an airstrike. Well, the Israeli media, I checked what the current status of this is. This is a report in the Times of Israel yesterday, and it says that Israeli authorities believe he was still alive and wounded after targeted in strikes earlier this week. If that is true, that he was wounded but is alive, that I think is a disaster for Israel, because it will only enhance his esteem amongst, I think, the Iranian people and his legitimacy. The fact that he almost paid the price with his life, but managed to emerge as the leader of Iran. We'll see what happens and whether this report is even correct. I'm not sure about that, but I think this is like the worst possible outcome for Israel. That
they've already killed his wife and his child. So
you're talking about the supreme leader, or you're talking about the son?
The son of Mujtaba. They killed one of. I mean, they killed his wife in the strike that killed the Ayatollah Khamenei. So he already has strong. I mean, he obviously, just like any Iranian does, but there's already blood spilled in his immediate family. It's absurd to think that having Mujtaba Khamenei as the Ayatollah would bring any form of peace for the United States.
You're here. Now, one other thing I want to touch on, because you raised her name in your rant, this former member of the Ontario legislature here in Canada, Goldie Gamadi. Yesterday it was brought to my attention by a follower on X that this lunatic recently put out this post. Mosques in occupied Iran are hubs of terrorism. Burn them down, bomb them. So I responded to this when it was brought to my attention on X by tagging the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Toronto Police and asking why they had not arrested this terrorist. I just ask you to imagine that this was put up by a supporter of Palestine, and it said, synagogues in Israel are hubs of terrorism, burn them down, bomb them. I have no doubt that that the federal police, provincial police, municipal police, and or the Canadian Security Intelligence Services, Canada's intelligence agency, would be at that person's door within 24 hours. But in this country, you can get away with this type of twisted, psychopathic commentary in the public domain. And as far as I know, until now, there have been no consequences for her. In any case, maybe we have a little bit of time here for some Q&A, Rami. I certainly have, I've got about 15 minutes. So if people in the audience have questions, we welcome them.
So earlier in the chat, there was someone who said, how should we face and respond to monarchists who may cause confrontation? They are rude and they have vigilante groups that take photos of people and try to create fear in the community in Canada. I think that's a good question. How do you kind of engage with these monarchists in?
Yeah, well, the way that I've done, I've now done 2 reports on these pro-Israel, pro-Trump monarchists in the Iranian diaspora. And by the way, I'm making a generous assumption that they actually are Iranian. I don't know what their origin is, but they claim to be Iranian, the ones that I've interacted with. And I'm prepared to assume that they are of Iranian origin. Now, the way that I've dealt with it is just to ask them whether they put the camera in front of them, put a microphone in front of them, and ask them how they feel about the fact that Israel and the United States are bombing their country, and let them talk, and ask them how they feel about the fact that the United States, it does appear to have been the U.S. military, bombed a girls' school and killed over 160 girls. How do they feel about the fact? Now we can ask them that Israel is trying to blow up a desalination plant in Iran, which is a water-stressed country. And I think that putting these questions to them, recording their responses, is a very effective way of delegitimizing them, because when they are presented to us by the Western media, who have been reporting extensively, they come across, they'll only publish commentary from people like this, or snippets of commentary which sound reasonable to the average member of our society. But when you actually ask them these questions and let them talk and don't edit the answers, just keep it, you realize that you're dealing with fascist lunatics. That's what I think these people are. They are completely off the charts when it comes to in terms of the political spectrum and where they lie. These people are extreme right. They are racist to the core. I don't think that they have any interest whatsoever in the well-being of ordinary citizens of Iran. My best guess is that the great many of these people come from the elite within the Iranian diaspora. They themselves or their parents fled from the country when their beloved Shah was overthrown after tormenting the Iranian people for decades. So just let them talk, ask them questions, and show the world who they really are.
Why don't these countries shut off these bases? It's not like they need American dollars. I think we're referring to U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Emirates.
Well, that's an excellent question. And I think there are going to be a lot of people asking that question in the months ahead in West Asia. What did they get out of having these military bases at the end of the day? They certainly haven't protected these countries. In fact, what they've done, the presence of the U.S. military has attracted the missiles and drones of the Islamic Republic, because it's clear that they are being used in some way, shape, or form to carry out or facilitate a war of aggression on Iran. And they're incapable. So they're actually increasing the risk level for these countries, while at the same time proving themselves incapable of defending these countries. And we also know, or at least there are reports that the U.S. has reallocated air defense systems that were supposed to be protecting these countries to the genocidal Israeli entity. This is something about which a Saudi official has publicly complained. So I think there's a real question at this stage whether these bases will survive this war. And it may be that some or all of them will be permanently shut down, not just because the people living in these countries are going to be intensely hostile to their presence, but also because the U.S. military is probably going to come to the conclusion that some or all of these bases are indefensible. They're just too close to Iran, and Iran's missile and drone capabilities are too sophisticated for them to be defended.
Also, I believe there are reports that Indonesia has been leaving the Board of Peace, or temporarily suspended its place in the Board of Peace. I mentioned Germany themselves withdrawing from military bases in the Middle East. But I also think that maybe it'll be difficult for countries like the Emirates and Saudi Arabia to force the United States out of their country, even if at the expense of their own population. I don't know.
I just added to the screen a comment from Speaking Truths, who referenced to Muqtada Khamenei. Apparently, the fact that he was almost martyred is very significant in Shia Islam. I myself can't comment on that because I'm not an expert in the religion, but it's just a matter of common sense. I think that this will greatly enhance his standing. And, I want to add that the Western narrative about the religious leaders of Iran, whether you agree with them or you think that the system of government they've established is democratic, humanitarian, whatever your views may be, it is really hard to argue that they are in it for themselves, that they take on these positions of responsibility in order to enrich themselves, when it's absolutely clear that anyone who assumes this position is going to have a target on his back and is going to be taking an enormous risk that not only he himself, but also members of his family will be murdered by the Israelis and the Americans. So whatever you may think about their politics or their conception of government, I think that these people who have stepped forward to assume these responsibilities are doing it out of a sense of religious duty. Otherwise, it's really hard to explain why they're risking their lives in this way.
Do we have time for one more, Dmitry?
Sure. I have time for a couple more, actually.
What will it take for Iran to seriously damage the Epstein's coalition ability to use airstrikes, given that these seems to be its one-trick trump card?
Well, I again, acknowledging that I have very limited expertise in military matters, I don't have the sense that they can, that the Iranian military can impose steep costs on the air forces of Israel and the United States. There are indications that they've shot down 4 or 5 aircraft. They have taken out a lot of drones, dozens of them, the most sophisticated drones in the U.S. and Israeli arsenals. They've published lots of video of that, lots of photographs of the drones that have been taken under control or destroyed, downed, and crashed. But whether they can inflict serious losses on the air forces of these two countries is, I think, doubtful. But what they can do is they can cause them to expend their limited supplies of munitions, especially the more advanced munitions like the Tomahawks. And, the best weapons that the Iranians have is their own offensive capabilities, their own ballistic missiles and drones, and the economic warfare that they're capable. And ultimately, I think that that's what's going to win it for them. It's going to be that the world is not going to have the stomach for vastly increased prices in oil and gas, especially if this is sustained over a period of months. Again, we try to stress on this program, people don't really hear from the governments the truth about how fragile the global economy is and how susceptible to another crash the global financial system is. They've been lying to us about that ever since 2008, 2009. A lot of the major financial institutions out there are basically zombies that have been propped up by government largesse. But there are limits to what even these Western governments can do to sustain the financial system in its current form. So if you have a sudden, violent, and sustained increase in the price of oil and gas, upon which the global economy depends, you could see carnage in the financial industry, in the capital markets, very quickly.
There was an interesting question. So is it possible Bahrain people, for instance, might rise up successfully against their leaders?
What do you think, Rob?
Well, I don't know, but Bahrain is, there's a particularity to Bahrain considering that it's occupied by a Wahhabi Zionist government. Yes, just like the other countries in the GCC, but the difference is that Bahrain has a significantly larger population of Shias that have protested during the Arab Spring, quote unquote Arab Spring, against the rulers of Bahrain. Now, the only difference here is I do not know enough about the the revolutionary movements in Bahrain, at least not over the last couple of years. I know that people tend to revolt a lot less when they're comfortable and when there's a lot of money circulating. And also we need to understand that Bahrain is a tiny country, truly. It's almost like an island that you could barely see on the map that is basically connected by a bridge to Saudi Arabia. I don't think Saudi Arabia would ever let Bahrain fall into the hands of people that are in support of Iran.
Yeah, there are a lot of reports on social media that the ruler of Bahrain has fled the country, but I have no idea whether that's true or not. at the same time, I suspect that he's probably in Saudi Arabia or somewhere outside of this tiny island nation, given the level of unrest in the country and the hostility to his rule. Why don't we take one more? Do you have another question, Rami?
Two more questions. One of them is, can I become a patron of this channel? Yes, you can. There'll be a link in the description to sign up to the Patreon. Then we can. What is that?
I just want to say thank you for asking to Lady Alex M1339.
What else? Hello from Sydney. In solidarity with humanity, do you think the US will start using gravity bombs, carpet bombing from planes because they have run out of missiles? How can we stop this?
I think the U.S., especially under the Trump regime, is capable, the U.S. military is capable of anything. And I'm sad to say all indications appear to be that this is going to become increasingly depraved and desperate because there's no indication that the United States military and Israel are going to be able to stop the attacks, not only on their own territories, their own bases, but also on any shipping that tries to navigate through the Strait of Hormuz, and that's going to have devastating consequences for the global economy. So the natural tendency of these lunatics in the White House and in Tel Aviv is to become more depraved as their ability to achieve their objectives recedes. So I don't think we should exclude any act of depravity from Donald Trump or Benjamin Netanyahu. So again, ultimately, what is going to resolve this, I believe, is going to be the level of tolerance amongst people living in the West for the crimes of their governments, and particularly the economic costs of those crimes. And those economic costs are about to become quite severe.
Let me just pin this. Yeah, anyways. Okay. So I think we're at time.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. Rami, do you have any closing thoughts before we move on? I mean, maybe you could tell us a little bit about what your travel plans are. I myself am going to be returning to the Eastern Mediterranean in about 10 days' time, and I'm going to try to get to either Lebanon or Iran or both sometime in the next few weeks so that I can report from the ground. How about you, Rami?
So maybe we'll bump into each other at the airport in Montreal, because I'll be flying to Canada on the 18th of March. But today it's raining, so I don't know how I'll be able to commute, but I need to get to the center of town to document the Colombian elections here, which we will see if the people of Colombia have been satisfied with Petro's mandate, as they will be electing a new Senate. And I believe it's also they call it Camara, which I think is like the municipality. So we will see how the Pacto Histórico, the party of Petro, will be doing in this poll.
Okay. Safe travels. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and peace out.